Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to create a festive table garland. Now we're not actually live this week, this is a pre-record because I'm off to Brighton to do some Christmas shopping. I'm really spoiled. So yeah, it's a pre-record I'm afraid. But the sentiment is still there, so I hope you really enjoy it, and obviously still keep those questions coming and still keep those comments coming because we will still be able to answer. So yeah. So our Christmas table garland. Okay, so I'm actually going to use 3 different types of foliage. So I've got the blue spruce, like the Nordman spruce. I've got some mixed conifer, although to be fair, I've just picked up a bunch of single variety, but you can get some beautiful mixed selections. If you go onto our website, that's www.trianglenursery.co.uk. There's a huge bag with lots of different varieties in. Some, I have to confess, I haven't even seen before. So yeah, that's worth investigating. And then we've also got some Pinus Strobus. So as you can see, 3 completely different textures, which will help to give us a nice festive feel to our table garland. Now, for those of you who are watching us for the first time and haven't met us before, my name is Debbie. I tend to do all the decorative stuff this side of the camera. And my colleague Laura,
hi there.
You'll hear in the background, but you won't see her if she has her way. She'll answer your questions, and she does all the technical stuff, which is way beyond me. Okay, so I've introduced the foliage. So I'm now going to introduce the sundry items that I'm going to use. So we've got some dried orange slices here, which I'm going to show you how to wire up. So you can use a 71 by 300 millimetre wire, or on this case I'm using a 90 by 300 because this is actually a bit tougher. So it's a heavier gauge and it's a bit easier to pop through the orange slices, but I will just warn you, it's not so malleable. So if you've got fingers that are quite tender, not so hard and rough as mine are, you may be best going for the 71s rather than the 90. Okay, so that's all there is to it for wiring up your orange slices. So just poke it through, just underneath the rind. Bring the 2 ends of the wire together to perform what we call a double leg mount. And there you have it. Now the nice thing about doing them that way is you can actually twist them in and around the foliage. I'll show you that later. Next, I've also got some cones. Very easy way to wire the cones. Just place the wire around the base, in between the little sections, and then just bring the 2 ends together and twist. So once again, that double leg mount. And then last but by no means least, beautiful cinnamon. Smells absolutely glorious. So the cinnamon and the oranges together really give an evocative fragrance to your Christmas room as well. That's kind of what makes it Christmas, I think. The smells and the sounds of the rest of it. Oh, I'm getting right romantic there, Laura.
You are indeed very festive at this time of year.
So I'm just going to pop some raffia around that. Just to give it that sort of rustic feel. Tie my fingers in with it this time. Perhaps I won't be going to Brighton. I'll be attached to a table centre. So just tying that little bundle of 3 together. Now you can glue it if you want to. I prefer not to. I like to just tie it. And then once again, I'm just going to cut one of these wires down because they are quite long. So where you've got, can you see that, Laura?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where you've got that little bundle tied together, just slide the wire underneath the raffia, bring the 2 ends together and bind it. Okay. Now incidentally, if you didn't wire it and you just had a tiny piece of blue spruce fixed to that and then just tied that all together with the raffia, that would make a really lovely present trimming and very eco-friendly. So yeah, my top tip for the day. Right, so now we're going to make a start. So The table arrangement, or the table garland that I'm doing, is going to be suitable for a 6-foot table. You can, if you want to, adapt it to a hanging garland, but what I would suggest you do, if you are making a hanging garland, is actually use a large piece of rope or something quite substantial, cut that to the length of garland that you want, and then wire onto the garland. The reason for that is it stops any stretching. As the foliage starts to dry out, you will find that it kind of disentangles itself from each other, and you will find it kind of stretches, and you might find a couple of bits drop out. If it's actually bound onto a stay wire or a piece of rope, then that's not going to happen. Okay, not going to worry about a stay wire or a rope today because this is going on a table, so it's not necessary. Okay, so I'm just going to move my foliage over. You might have noticed we have a slightly different look to our studio today. We have brought in our dining table so you can see how this works when it's finished. So not only do Laura and I do the floristry, we're now furniture removers as well, aren't we, Laura?
We are indeed. It's quite a big move, to be fair. Our studio table is quite a hefty number.
Quite hefty. And I think we've both decided we're going to stick with flowers.
Definitely.
Right, okie dokie. So I'm going to start with a nice long piece. So I'm going to start at one end. And
so just a note to make as well is, obviously maybe don't make it on your dining table just because it is quite a messy job.
It sure is. Yeah, I probably would make it either outside or perhaps lay some plastic down or something. Do it on a suitable work surface so you're not going to damage your best dining table. This is going to be well and truly cleaned before anyone eats on it. I have to assure you of that, or reassure you of that. Okay, so starting off with our blue spruce. What I didn't actually show you earlier was I've cut the spruce into sort of usable pieces. So cutting them, if I just show you, I'll cut some now. Oops. So cutting like this. Oops. So as you can see, cutting them into little tiny sections that you can then bind in. All right.
So just a question, Debbie, really quickly, about the type of scissors you're using to cut the foliage. Would you say secateurs are the best, or carbon blade, or economy?
Okay, so I've actually got two pairs of carbon blade scissors here. I think I might have pinched somebody else's scissors as well as my own. You can never have too many scissors. So I personally always use carbon blade scissors for any floristry work that I'm doing, unless we've got really tough, thick, woody stems, in which case I use the Oasis secateurs. They're a little bit more, kind of handle the stem a little bit better. The problem you'll find is if you use your best carbon blade scissors with thick, heavy stems, you're going to end up kind of twisting the blades, and then they don't work as well. So yeah, protect your scissors a little bit if you can, and use secateurs for the heavier stems. So I'm now going to start building up the garland. I'm just threading the pieces through, and oops, you kind of need to get into a bit of a routine really. So just binding that around the stems, nice and tightly, so it's secure. Then I'm going to add in the varying different textures as I go along. What I will do, I don't know if you can see this, is I'm actually going to bind around and through the stems so that you can't actually pull that stem out. And then next I want another nice largish piece, which I'm going to lay on top. That's of the blue spruce, sorry I didn't mention that bit. And then bind that in as well. So if you've been a follower of us and you've actually seen the garland that we made for weddings using soft ruscus, this is very much a similar style, only I'm using Blue Spruce in this occasion as my kind of base foliage, whereas before we used the soft ruscus. Now this can be made up a few days before you need it. Store it in a cellophane lined cardboard box. Spray it with water and then store it somewhere cool and dark. Ideally frost free until you need it, and then you can add your adornments to it nearer the time. There are so many different things that you can add, such as baubles, Christmas baubles. I'm going to add some fruit in a minute. You can add dried fruits and cones to keep it really Christmassy. Candles, votives. To be fair, the options are endless. If you've got a particularly special Christmas theme that you've got this year, perhaps you were doing sort of a snow, winter wonderland snow theme, then you could actually add some of the snow and waxed birch or twigs into that, and that would make it look very Christmassy.
You could even do the snow spray paint that they do, just to add a little frost to the blue spruce. That
would look lovely. That would look really nice. And if you've got a winter wonderland kind of theme, well, I'm not supposed to advocate using glitter anymore, actually. It's not very eco-friendly. I was going to say a little bit of sparkle looks really nice as well.
They do actually do the blue spruce, and it's actually dyed, so you can get white blue spruce.
Oh,
and you can get a lot of dyed foliage, so for instance asparagus fern, or actually birches.
Some of the dyed asparagus fern, there's an antique rose gold one that's actually really pretty. So yeah, there are lots of options. So you can see how we're gradually building this garland up. Just make sure you keep it nice and tight as you add.
So I can see that you're using twine there, Debbie. Would you ever use binding wire, or is it just personal preference?
So you can use binding wire or twine, as you say. Personally, I always prefer to use twine. I actually tend to pull quite hard when I'm binding, and I do find that the binding wire does sometimes cut my hand. But also, if you're using really delicate stems, you pull too hard with binding wire, it actually does cut through the stem. Also, probably the most important thing is the twine is actually eco-friendly. So when you've finished with the garland and it's starting to look a bit tired and you want to get rid of it, the whole lot, including the twine, can be put into your green composter. Whereas you can't do that if you use wire, because the wire doesn't decompose. So yeah, that's my eco-friendly hat on today. All right, so what I would suggest you do is, once you've got sort of halfway, sort of, if you're doing a 6 foot table garland, once you've got sort of 3 foot, stop and then repeat the process. So you've got 2 equal ends that you can then meet in the middle. So you need to have a return end. You don't want this ugly sort of stubby bit one end of the table, then a nice elegant finished decoration up the other. Your guests might think you're picking on them if they're sitting at the end of the table. Or maybe that's just me. So yeah, that's I'm going to just do a little bit more, and then we're going to stop and do the second half. Oops. I need some more of my conifer.
There's so many different types of conifer, like you were saying earlier, that would really work in this.
Oh,
I love the pale green, just to add a different colour shade to the garland. That would work really lovely.
It would work really nicely, and some of those beautiful long spiky ones are such interesting shapes. As I say, some of them I've never even seen before. So.
One comment we did have beforehand was about wearing gloves, just because obviously some of the foliage is quite spiky, and I suppose you have to get used to it as such. But is it easy to wear gloves whilst you're doing garland work, or? Is it not advised?
Personally, I never have, because I find my hands are quite tiny, and I find most gloves are a little bit too big. I end up binding the glove in and then can't get my hand out. So, but that's just me being awkward, probably. A couple of the girls who work here do use gloves. I have been known to wear gloves if I'm doing a little bit of mossing. If it's really dirty moss or there's lots of pine cones in, it's a bit spiky. Also, as was the case this morning when I was doing some mossing, it's still frozen. And that's quite hard on the hands when you're using frozen moss. So yeah, I used gloves this morning just while the moss was defrosting. Yeah, it's a personal choice really, and one of those things where you do what works for you really. There's no hard and fast rules either way, to be honest.
But there's some like foliage. I can't think of the name. But
oh, juniper. Oh, that's
very
lethal.
spiky, isn't it?
Yeah, juniper's not pleasant to work with. Yeah, no. Yeah, and holly, obviously.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, though, your hands do get hardened to it. I guess is the word. I have been known to use that as an excuse to not wash up on Christmas Day because my hands are too sore after doing holly wreaths.
I don't blame you.
So yeah.
Keep the excuse going for as long as possible in my books.
Not sure I can work on that anymore. I haven't done quite so many holly wreaths this year.
Okay.
But I think I'll get found out. But yeah, no. What I would suggest though is that you keep your hands scrupulously clean once you've finished. Use a pumice stone and nail brush and probably an antibacterial hand wash, because some of the prickles that you get from holly can turn poisonous if you're susceptible to that. So yeah, just be a little bit aware, be a bit sensible about it. So we do use a barrier cream here as well. That's something else that you can do. That's helpful. But again, I find a barrier cream inside gloves is a bit slippery. I think I'm just awkward, really, don't you, Laura?
You sound a bit, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm just a bit awkward and cat-handed.
And then another question, which I'm sure we'll get asked, is obviously we're using quite evergreen foliage here, but what about things like eucalyptus? Would they last as long? If you were to put them in the garland, when would you create the garland and how long do you think it would last?
So, personally, I probably wouldn't use eucalyptus in a garland that I was going to make up that I wanted to last for a long period of time, especially not at Christmas if you're using it indoors, because it's so warm, it's just not gonna survive. It will dry out and go very, very crispy. If you do want to use it, if it's just sort of a one-off event, then you can put it in, but I'd probably put it in at the last minute. So you could make up the sort of body of the garland and then add your eucalyptus at the last minute. The same goes for flowers really. If you're putting fresh flowers into something like this, add those in at very much the last minute. Okay, so that's half done. I'm just going to move that to one side. So as you can see, I'll turn it upside down. See, it's quite neat and tidy on the back. But what will happen when that dries out is these will start to move if you're hanging it up. So again, if it's a hanging garland you're using, use a stay wire or rope. So I'm just going to repeat that process again. So
I know we were talking about the eucalyptus a minute ago. So we saw how you finished it. Is it simply just to tie the end together?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just create a double knot.
Yeah, very simple. Nothing too technical on that one. Oh, and to start off with, just tie the end of the string, the double knot. And literally start binding.
Perfect.
As you can see, I do tend to pull the string quite tightly. So I'll find some longer pieces here.
And if you were to make up this garland, where would you realistically store it if you didn't put it in place straight away?
I'd probably put it in my garage. At home, my garage is actually quite well protected. It's lined and it's frost free, so I've never known it to freeze in there. So that's probably where I would put it. Ideally, you don't really want it to go below 2 degrees Celsius. It's probably best if you can to keep it slightly above that. But yeah, line your box with some cellophane. Lay the garlands on top of the cellophane, sprinkle the cellophane with water, and just store it like that. It's something you can do a little bit in advance, because quite frankly, who wants to be doing this on Christmas Eve?
Not me.
No, exactly. Christmas Eve is a glass of something sparkly and a good film, I think. Or in my case, wrapping up last minute Christmas presents.
Hopefully not.
Okay, so just filling in, or just picking up some of these pieces now just to keep this design going. Now I'm just going to cut another piece of the blue spruce because I've run out of some of the more chunky pieces now. Now I've probably used about 4 stems out of a 5 kilogram bundle. Now, depends obviously on the size table that you have. Excuse me, just grab another piece. And obviously the longer the table, the more you'll need. But I would suggest 1 bundle of this blue spruce would probably accommodate 2, and if you're a bit more thrifty, maybe 3 of this size garland. That's using other foliage with it as well.
So you could basically do the whole house.
You could.
You could. Use
Stairs,
mantelpiece,
stairs as well, yeah.
table.
And then what you can do with these little tiny pieces that you don't put in the garland, you just nip those off. They actually look lovely set around the inside of a glass, and then push a candle into it. Then fill up with a little bit of water and a few cranberries as well. Makes a really lovely, really simple table arrangement. Okay, so just binding that large. So you can see how useful the heavier, bigger stems are. They actually do act as your support for the rest of your foliage.
So you could almost, if you were, say, creating your wreath, because for the wreath you almost get rid of those big woody stems, don't you? So you can always keep those.
That's a brilliant idea. Yeah, cut the little pieces off that you need for the wreath, then pop these woody pieces into a bucket of water and store those ready for your garland. That's a brilliant idea. So what I would suggest you do, if you are going to do that, saying this is your piece of, I know this isn't a woody piece, but if this was a woody piece that you're going to save, just strip a couple of inches off the bottom of bark and of pine needles, just so that exposes the cells to water. And just pop that into water, and that will last in water. Oh, I've known it to last a couple of months. So yeah, do condition it. It's just like any other foliage. Just because it's Christmas tree, for want of a better word, doesn't mean that it doesn't need water just the same as anything else does.
So it'll just simply dry out if it's not watered, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's just, well, even your Christmas tree that you bring in, it's best to give that a good old drink of water every day if you're having a fresh Christmas tree. So,
especially in our homes at the moment. It's -degrees. Well, to be fair, probably can't compare to anywhere else. I know we've got a wide audience, so I can't complain about the weather.
No.
But I'm not used to -degrees.
No, definitely
My
not.
heating is definitely on.
We had one of our workshops last night, didn't we, Laura?
Yeah.
And then as we said goodbye to all the ladies, We both looked into the car park and our cars were white.
Ice cubes. Was not impressed. At 10 o'clock in the evening.
Not good, not good.
No.
So you can see what I mean by I really pull this quite tight. If you're doing that with a wire, this is where the wire is going to cut you. So yeah, just be a little bit aware.
It's almost like you want to do a little bit of practice to what you prefer.
Yeah,
I think you just learn it over the years of what works best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am trying my hardest to be very eco-conscious nowadays with the biodegradable cellophane, biodegradable foam. Because let's face it, if we don't start doing something soon, it's going to be too late, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So every little helps, as they say. Plus the fact I think it looks more natural. Got some string rather than
So just
wire.
a question as well. When you're, if you do pull quite tight on the twine, there might be a risk of breakage. So what would you do if it does break?
Yeah, that does happen quite a lot. So if it breaks, just tie it up with a double knot and start again. Just take the piece that you have broken, add the piece that's not broken to it, double knot, and away you go. Just keep binding.
Keep binding.
It's a shame you guys can't smell what's going on in our studio today, because it smells absolutely heavenly.
So just a question to you all in the audience. How many people have been doing wreath making? How many people have been doing wreath making for friends and family? Has anyone done any workshops? I know there's lots of people doing workshops this year.
It's such a lovely thing to do. It's so social. Our ladies last night, we had prosecco, sausage rolls, mince pies. And you probably noticed I'm mentioning the food and the drink as opposed to the flowers and foliage. But there you go.
It is a bit like us. You'll learn that we are very much foodies in this workplace.
Definitely.
Food over flowers, I don't think we can say that.
We might think it, but I think we best not say it.
Yeah, I don't think our boss would agree.
Absolutely.
But no, I'm sure there's lots of fantastic workshops going on. We've been sent lots of photographs from everyone doing them. Say photographs of people making wreaths and the finished wreaths, and it's just lovely to see. And really nice and festive, even though it's been the beginning of the month. And I know it's a little bit too early for me.
Well, it's so lovely to think that we've inspired people to have a go, because, oh my goodness me, how nice is it to sit with a group of friends, glass of wine, a chat, make up a little wreath. So much better than sitting watching television or
definitely
playing on the computer or surfing the net.
You're talking from experience there, girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Do a cheeky little close-up on you.
Right, so just seeing how close we are. Yeah, there we go. So we're almost half and half. I'm going to call that a day there, because otherwise I'll have to cut some more.
Otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be here till midnight. Okay, so just slip knot. And then just double that again. Oops. And then you go. Going to have to think of a name for wreath making workshops, because my mum goes to a knit and natter group.
Oh, I love that.
So
Knit and natter.
but I've actually renamed it. I've renamed it Stitch and Bitch. I don't think my mum's over impressed.
I don't think that's going to follow.
No, I don't think Mum's impressed, but hey, probably not in the spirit of what's intended. You have to think of a nice catchy name for wreath making workshops.
Oh,
so
gosh,
if you guys out there have got a really catchy name. Right.
Well, you have to think of one for us too, Christ. I'll leave it to the audience to make the decision.
Yeah, definitely. That could be quite interesting what we get back, to be fair.
Yeah. prize for the winner.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Oh dear.
All right, so you can see where we've got to. So just bringing those two ends together. Now you've got these hard woody pieces, and what you want to be doing is threading one into the other. Okay. And then just secure those with, oh, don't know what's happened to my string there. It's gone a bit weird. I'll use this one. So just tie those together nice and tightly. I've thought of one. Reef and beef. No, okay, we'll stop there.
Sorry.
We'll stop there. Okay, that doesn't cut it.
I can't even give you a 7 for that.
That doesn't cut it. Come on, guys out there, give us a hand here. I obviously need a lot of inspiration here.
Oh dear. No inspirations come to mind for me, so I have to leave it to the audience.
Definitely, it might be the safest bet, really. Okay, so now the tiny little pieces that we had left, basically you want to make it look like the whole thing joins. So if you can see what I've done there, I've just threaded that stem through. Ideally, you don't really want any of the woody stems showing. And then tuck that one underneath. And then got some smaller pieces here, so just threading those through.
So just while Debbie's finishing off and doing the middle part of the wreath, just to let everyone know, we are now officially in December.
Yes.
So just to let everyone know, our flower of the month, our fabulous flower of the month, is amaryllis. So you would have seen, or if you haven't seen, go and check it out. That we've done an introduction video on amaryllis over on our Facebook page and also on YouTube. So go and check it out. It's all talks about all the lovely varieties available, the grades, the quality, how they arrive to you, and how to condition them. So go over and have a look at that. And then also over the course of the month, we will be doing how-to guides, just like all of our flower of the monthers. We do some demonstrations of how you can incorporate the beautiful flowers into different floral designs. So have a look over the course. I know specifically, and it was my favourite to create, is we've done a Christmas wreath with amaryllis in, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So make sure you look out for that one.
I have to say, it has been a huge treat to work with some beautiful amaryllis. I think my favourite one was the Winter Wonderland one that we did with the white amaryllis.
Definitely.
Loved
More of
that.
an event, kind of simple. Oh yeah, that was lovely as well.
Yeah, so don't forget to have a quick look at those. Hopefully that will give you some inspiration. And if you have got a really large house that you've got a grand entrance to, then that would work beautifully on an entrance table.
Definitely.
Anyway.
Simple but very effective. So yeah, stay tuned over the course of December. And also don't forget, we've got lots of fabulous how-to guides on all about Christmas. So over on our website, on the how-to guide section, and also on our YouTube channel, we've got lots of wreath making, of course. We've got Garland, we've got tailor centres, so lots of lovely festive ideas that you can incorporate into your home.
Yeah, it's been a joy actually, I have to
Absolutely.
say. We've had some really lovely opportunities to use some bits of different foliage and different flowers, and yeah, it's been a joy. I am still loving Skimmia japonica. It works so beautifully at Christmas. Right, so I've just tied that in. So as you can see, or I hope you can see, we've got no dodgy, hard middle bit. Kind of all works in together.
Beautiful.
So now I'm just going to decorate that. So with my wired items, I'll just bring those over. Oh, she says, hopefully. Oh. Now because they're all wired already, you can, if you're feeling artistic. You can actually place them where you would like them before you wire them in, and then that way you get an even balance. Or if you prefer a random look, just wire them as you go along. I'm going to be non-random today. I'm going to be balanced today. You're going to go balancing.
She's balancing.
I was balancing.
It's fine. We'll let you balance.
I'm not sure.
I would be very much the same.
I'm not sure if
I'm
it's
not very good at random.
good for, no, I don't do random very well. Oh, that one's not got raffia, that's got twine on that one. Okay, so, and then we've got orange at the end.
Why do you think random's so hard to achieve?
I don't know, but I'm kind of guessing it's something to do with how your left and right side of your brain works. I have to have things in order, really. If I've got, I can do sort of one on one side and two the other, but they have to be balanced, do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, weird.
I suppose as well, you stick to, I know we've said in the past about rules and principles of design, but obviously over the years you've kind of built up that experience and ways that you work using those principles.
It's kind of what you're taught when you go to college as well, isn't it? You're taught principle of design, so it's quite difficult. When somebody says, or a bride says to you, oh, I'd like it to look like it's just been randomly selected from the garden. That's so difficult to achieve. It sounds so simple, but it's actually not, because your brain wants you to make a design, doesn't want you to just do it randomly.
Plonk it in a box.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm doing here is I'm just literally popping the wires in to the foliage, bringing the two ends together. She says, easy for me to say. Popping the ends together of the wires, twisting them.
So you're literally just going around like one piece?
Yeah, just one piece.
Okay, so you don't, like, as you do a wreath, you don't go through the whole
No,
wreath?
it's not necessary.
No?
And I'm trying my hardest not to let the wires go through and underneath, just in case you have got a really lovely polished surface to your table. You don't really want to be scratching it with wires.
That's true.
So I'm just twisting the wires and then bending them back on themselves and up, so they actually are not going to touch the table at all. Now we had a garland that I created, oh gosh, how many months ago? It's been in our studio for, must have been a couple of months, I reckon, don't you?
I think it was the end of October we did.
Oh, okay, not quite a couple of months then. But it's been sat in our very hot studio, and I only threw it away yesterday. And the only reason why I threw it away yesterday is because it gone very dry and crispy and it started to drop. But actually, it didn't really look horrendous, did it?
No.
So if you're prepared to put up with them looking a bit crispy, you can keep them for a while.
The foliage just fades.
Yeah, it does.
That's what I was meant to say. I just combined it.
New word, foliage. So I'm just trimming these wires because they are a bit wild.
A bit long. So if you wanted to incorporate a little bit of colour into the foliage, obviously you've got your dried products, but if you were to use, is there specific greenery that you could use, I know we mentioned about skimmer earlier, that would just give a little bit of colour to the design?
Oh yes, some variegated holly with some red berries would look really lovely in here. That's if you're prepared to work with holly. So that would look really lovely. You could, if you wanted to add something that's going to look a tiny bit more rustic maybe, add some of the Eryngium thistle. That would look quite nice. That would give a bit of colour, either in the blue or the Sirius Questar, which is the silver. That would be very festive. And you could, if you wanted to, add some olive to that. That would be in the same kind of colour scheme. I would just say olive is going to be of a similar vein to eucalyptus. It's going to dry out and go quite crispy quite quickly. What else can I think of colour-wise? You mentioned about bringing in some...
Could you use any of the viburnum berries? Because they're lovely at this time of year.
Oh yeah, the black ones, the steel berries.
You've also got the red ones as well, haven't you?
Yeah, and
I've seen those recently.
Also, you've got hypericum berries. They'd work quite nicely as well if you wanted to bring in not only, doesn't want to go where I want it to, not only the red colour tones, you've got green, you've got sort of peaches and pinks and whites, almost yellows as well, cream colour tones, so that would be really nice to use. So yeah, to be honest, the options are endless really.
Just depends on your style as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and taste.
Whether you want to go more traditional or quite modern.
And that was a really interesting thing with our workshop last night. All of the ladies, completely different taste, and every wreath was completely different, which is lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right, so we're nearly there. So, as I said earlier, you've got that beautiful fragrance of pine, you've got orange slices, you've got cinnamon. Just epitomises Christmas for me, I think.
All of the scents are really strong, aren't they? So I'm surprised how strong the orange slices are.
Yeah, when you open the packet, it's quite... Ooh.
Yeah, you definitely know they're orange.
you wouldn't... Yeah, even if you had your eyes closed, you'd certainly know what they were.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a word about the wires. I am poking them back in, but on themselves. So if you run your hands through the garland, you're not going to get pricked by the wires. Because if you've got young children at the table and they're going to grab something, you don't want them poking their hands on a wire. So the alternative to that, if you wish, is to actually tie them on. So rather than wiring, you could put some raffia on and just tie them. So, but that's quite fiddly because you need something quite substantial to push the raffia through.
Could you use, I know there's the green, the binding wire that is paper coated.
Yeah, you could definitely use that. That would be a little bit softer.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I think we only have the natural coloured one, don't we? We don't have green.
No, we do have
We
green.
have green? Oh, we do
Yeah,
have green. Oh,
green's
okay,
now
that's
available.
brilliant. So that would work quite well then because you wouldn't see it so much. There we go. 2 more and then we're done. So it hasn't really taken that long.
No.
And obviously once the children break up for school holidays, Christmas holidays, you can always get them helping you. It's something you can all sort of have a go at. They can wire the bits and pieces for you while you pop it together. And again, so much nicer than sitting watching the television.
Or you could do this watching a Christmas film.
You could.
Just like you would if you were ironing your clothes.
Exactly. Or listen to some Christmas songs.
Or instead of making a wreath workshop, you could do a garland workshop.
Perfect idea. Right, so there we have it. Now I'm just going to clear the decks and then I'm going to place it so you can see what it looks like in its full glory. So as you can see, I've just put a little bit of a Hessian table runner down first, then laid the garland on top and just put a few chapel candles in. So you don't have to use chapel candles. What would look really nice is some little sparkly votives, or even, if you wanted to, some little tiny jam jars of flowers dotted about. Christmas roses, hellebores would look fantastic, and perhaps even some little bits of skimmia, just dotted in little jars around, perhaps a few tea lights, just to give it that bit of added sparkle. So I hope you've enjoyed watching our festive table garland today. I hope it's inspired you to have a go yourself. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please don't forget to like us and share us with your friends, colleagues, family, whoever you know. We look forward to welcoming you back again very soon, and thank you so much for watching. So it's goodbye from me and
Bye from me.
bye.